Hi, I'm Dave. In this video tutorial I will show you a variety of layout options that will help you create design that you want with ease. We will discuss relative positioning of elements, responsiveness and spacing options for them. First of all, you need to know is that elements needs to be in column and columns needs to be in row. Rows are horizontal slices of the screen. They are used only as wrappers for columns. Columns help you divide screen horizontally. Our grid consists of 12 columns. You can select any size from 1 to 12 for your column. If you want 3 equal columns, you can use 412 width for each one, because 3 times 412 is 1212, so 100% width. We will create 3 equal columns. Add row first, then change default column width to 412. Next, add 2 columns to this row and set their width to 412 as well. Now we have 3 equal columns. Now let's discuss the case where columns don't fill whole row. Our third column will be 212, so it will leave some space after it. As you can see, all of that columns is justified to left. You have multiple options to make proper positioning and define the alignment along the main axis. In containing row, there is justify content option where you can set justify columns to left, right, center, and the last 3 helps distribute extra free space left over. First of them set equal space between that columns, but first and last are stick to the edges. Next option, make columns evenly distributed in the line with equal spaces around them. Note that visually the spaces aren't equal, since all columns have equal space on the both sides. The last option works a bit differently. Columns are distributed so that the spacing between any 2 items and the space to the edges is equal. So as we mentioned, you can set different width to each column manually, or you can choose from predefined columns layout in Edit Row window. When you pick one, click Save and play with adding next columns to this row. It will automatically make proper column width according to the chosen columns layout. But remember, when you change one of that column width manually, it will uncheck chosen layout option, so next added column will be default 100% width. For next feature, we will need to add some content to these columns, or at least to one of them. Align items defines the default behavior for how columns are laid out along the cross-axis on the current line. Think of it as the justify content version for the cross-axis, perpendicular to the main axis. Default option is align items to top, but you can also specify align items to end, that means to bottom. Align items center, which will center columns vertically, and you can set column to the same height as highest column in row. Let's apply the last option and go to column settings. First option, changing alignment of specifically this column. Let's change it to align self-center. Stretch option was set in row for child columns, and align self-sitting overrides it for only this column, so rest is still stretched. Next, justify content and align items are the same as in row. To see how it works, let's add a button to column. Now let's center it vertically and horizontally by adding justify content center and align items center option to the containing column. Button is perfectly centered. If you feel lack of options to define the alignment along the cross-axis, like it is in row, you have option to swap main axis by clicking Flex column checkbox. If you do that, main axis becomes cross-axis and justify content option is corresponding to vertical space distribution. All elements are one under another, contrary to row. Let's set flex column and add one more button to see how it works. Now change justify content to distribute space evenly. Now when we add more text on left column, we will see that buttons are flexibly positioning. So let's talk about responsive options. You should know that in our creator we have used mobile first approach, which means that each responsive option, besides height on device and order, is associated not only with the screen size or the device to which it was assigned, but to higher screen resolutions too, until other options is specified. In short, it means that if we set 612 of column width to smartphone and 312 to desktop, it will be half of container width in all screen size from smartphone until desktop, where this column will shrink to quota container width. For rows, we can set responsive column layout, justify content, align items and hide on device, which is related to specific screen size and do not behave like other options. You already know how to use justify content and align items, but let's add it to responsiveness. For smartphones and higher, we will choose justify content center, and for tablets in landscape mode and higher, justify content end. Now when we shrink window, you will see that everything works great. So let's hide this row in tablet normal mode, shrink and see that it disappears only in this screen size. Same options are in columns, but here you can specify order of this column in row according to specific screen size. Remember that to proper ordering, you need to set order to all columns in this row. To help you with this, in another column, previously selected option is muted. So let's add to column with buttons order 1 for smartphones. Rest need to have orders as well. See what happens when all columns has order but not the least one. Order is not changed. All columns need to have order specified if you want to change default ordering. And now order is applied properly in smartphone screen size and only for it. That's all responsive options you have. If you need more space adjustment, you have spacing tab available in rows, columns, buttons and texts, where you can set margins and paddings. Padding is the space surrounding the content, separating it from the border, or the margin if the border is not set. It takes the background color of the content. Margin is generally the extra blank space around elements, separating boxes. Margin takes the background of the parent element. For better understanding, I will show you on live example. Let's create new row and add one 612 column in it with text block. To our row, let's add some background color and see how it looks on preview. We see that there is no spacing on the left, above and below text block. Let's add padding top 5, padding bottom 5 and padding left 5. Now in preview we can see that we gain extra space. Now let's say that we want another background color inside this row. We will change it in column that contains text. Click preview and see that we need extra space again. Add little padding 5 around text. If you want more left spacing to white box, you can add bigger padding left in row or just add margin left to this column. Let's add margin left 7. Then imagine that this box can fly above red row. To do this we need to move a little bit row to make space for white column box. Add margin top 7 to this row. Then we should move column out of boundaries of row. To do this, add negative margin to column. Add margin top -7. To better workflow, changes are not applied in editing mode. Click preview to see how it changes our layout. The last thing is to add some shadow to column to make floating impression. Let's clarify what margin auto means. Margins can have an auto value. In that case, an element takes up the space it needs and the remaining space is distributed to direction where margin auto is set. When left and right is set to auto, space is divided into 2 equal margins. Add margin left auto to column without margin right. It will move white box to right edge of row. Same with right margin auto. Now let's add margin left and right to auto to see that box will be centered in row. Remember that we have set padding left in row. We will clear it now. For a little bit more complexity, add another column and change it to 412. You can see that white box has evenly distributed space and right column is moved to the right edge of row. This is how it works. Thank you for watching. I hope this video helped you understand how elements positioning works and you will be able to create stunning layouts with ease using imagination and mouse. If you want free access to our creator, just visit itemplates.design/free and get 5 days plus 20% discount on 1-year plan.